at Camp Kirk. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Topic for this edition of Insights is Camp Kirk, but in particular Camp Kirk focuses on kids who are learning disabled and have ADD, and we're joined by Lynn Ziraldo. Lynn is Executive Director of the Learning Disabilities Association in New York Region. Lynn, we were just talking, this is the 30th anniversary.
It is. We're so excited because it's 30 years that we've been in New York Region.
But we were also saying it's 30 years for the association, and a lot of people still don't understand what learning disabilities are.
Every day we get a call that someone says, I didn't know you were here, where have you been? You know, and when you're dealing with learning disabilities, it is invisible. You know, it is a neurological condition that can affect how you take in information, how you listen, how you process information. It can affect you academically, socially, and it's a lifelong condition.
That's right. It's not going to, can't take a pill. It's not going
No, it's not going to go away.
So let's talk about learning disabilities actually affect 10 to 15% of the population in Canada.
That's correct.
What is a learning disability?
A learning disability is a neurological condition that affects how you take in information, how you process information, how you see information, how you remember information. Sort of the easy way of explaining it.
And I think that's really a good way to do it. And when I was reading about it, it said there's 5 major categories.
That's correct. Auditory, visual, motor, this is a test, conceptual, conceptual, and, you know, a lot of social organizations.
That was really good. How does somebody become learning disabled? Although we talked about, does it really matter, but is it genetic?
It can be. It can be genetic. It can be an injury that happened. You know, it could be the actual birth of a young person during their delivery. You know, it could be an injury. But in the end, it doesn't matter unless you drank or you smoked and you weren't supposed to be doing those during those first few months of pregnancy. In the end, it doesn't matter. Because what you got to do is, this is what you've been given, and it's a blessing, and what can you do with it? And
we both talked about the fact we both are parents of children with learning disabilities.
Absolutely, and I'm here because of them.
Yes.
You know, they have created who I am, you know, and becoming an advocate for them.
I was just going to say, do you find that you are an advocate for people with invisible disabilities?
For them, and also to encourage them to be their own advocates. You're going to hear a little young man later on today, and he's going to advocate on himself, and that's wonderful. That's what we want.
Now, what kind of assistance is out there? I mean, for someone who has a young child, probably in school, but probably when it's going to be diagnosed, and they get that diagnosis from the school, what happens? Like, where do they go? What do they do?
Well, they can come to our organization first. You know, there's a variety of programs we offer. We offer parent support programs. We offer programs for students to do social skills training and role and get to understand their learning disability because they need to understand it. There's programs that we do with adults, you know, to help them prepare for the workforce. There's training that we do for teachers and getting them to assist on what they can do in a classroom. Some of it is just this very simple accommodation, letting them have an open textbook.
Yes.
You know, when they write their exam.
Or a little bit more time.
More time. Technology has been amazing in what we can do now. Thank goodness for technology. That's made a huge difference in life. Sometimes it could be as simple as just walking up to a young student, just tapping them on the shoulder to calm down a bit. But our organization is a nonprofit organization, and we run so many programs for families that just know that they're not alone, that they can call us. We give them support, guidance, help them work through the systems. You know, whether it be an education system, whether it be the employment system, the social system, because they need to understand that you can work through this. It is not the end of the world. And my experience over the 30 years that I've been involved is that you just get more excited about it, you know, and there's so many things we want to do, but there's still many people who don't know. And they're the only person that is dealing with this, because it does affect a lot. And the severity of learning disabilities is different. It can be mild, and you may not be diagnosed until you're in secondary. It could be severe and diagnosed early, or there's some young people that still didn't get diagnosed until later on. So their self-esteem can be affected.
Would it generally be diagnosed in the school setting?
Absolutely. The intent is to try, and especially in New York Region, they're doing an awful lot of trying to diagnose, to give strategies, to try. They're not getting it. Why aren't they? What can we do? If that doesn't work, maybe we need to do some assessments to see if there is definitely a learning disability. When they know that, then they can work from there. and teach the teachers on how to deal with them, help the parents, and we'll go into schools and work with parents, we'll work with teachers. We have a wonderful volunteer program. We do a literacy program for young families who are not sure if their child has a reading disability, and we just help them through that process.
I think it's almost an aha moment as a parent when you discover that there is a diagnosis.
Absolutely, because then you think, aha, okay, I know it. I know there's something, now what do I do with this information? And it's making sure that we understand the strengths of someone with learning disabilities, because they have so many strengths. They also have some weaknesses, and then how they can adapt those strengths and weaknesses to be who they are today.
And you mentioned accommodation. I think that's so important for kids in school, because sometimes it's just a little thing, like more time for an exam.
More time for exam, or going to a smaller place to be able to do their exam when they don't have any distractions. It's be like someone who's in a wheelchair. You make sure the doors are wide.
Yes.
So for someone who has a brain, you know, where something's not wired right, we just need a different way. And they all learn it differently, and that's okay.
It must be very frustrating for the person who has the disability when they can't seem to be able to do things the way everyone else can. And I just can't imagine what kind of effect that must have on their self-esteem, how they feel about themselves.
It does have an effect, but what we have found with a lot of our young people and with our research, the more we talk about what their learning disability is and give them ideas of how to, they know in the end it's going to take them longer. They know that socially they may have some problems, but not everybody that has learning disabilities will have social problems. They'll figure out ways, and they need a support system, and that's what we can do as an organization. Support them with other people who have learning disabilities, people who have been successful. If we diagnose late, the self-esteem, you know, we deal with people in their 30s and 40s who are just finding out today that they have a learning disability. Now it clicks in, it's like a light bulb goes on, and it clicks
I can just imagine.
I'm not stupid. I'm not lazy. I'm not unmotivated. I really have something that's interfering with my learning.
I bet for a lot of those people, they've gone through their academic years hearing things like not living up to their full potential, you know, the parent-teacher interview.
Try harder.
Yeah, that's all you need to do, just try harder.
But we have parents who say that too, you know, you just need to work harder and everything else, but you need to have ways that they can have that outdoor activity. Whatever their strength is, they need to be able to do it, whether it's drama, arts, music, going to camp, whatever, to make them feel good with utilizing their strengths.
Now, you talked a little bit about some of the services that the Learning Disabilities Association offers. You have support groups.
We have support groups for parents, support groups for young people, support groups for adults with learning disabilities. We have training sessions for teachers and professionals, for social workers, because it affects everybody.
And public awareness must be an important part of what you do.
Absolutely, and it frustrates me, especially in York Region, that people still say, I didn't know you existed, and I'm going, we're in the phone book, we come on a show like this, you know, but people still don't know. And the other thing is, sometimes someone might have told them, but they weren't ready to accept it.
Yes, that's a very good
and that's
point.
okay to understand that, but in the end, to know that it's confidential when you come to us. We have people on staff and volunteers that will work with them. And chances are someone else on their street has it too.
Now, you talked about that. I think that is so crucial. Do you find that often with people the initial reaction is maybe anger?
Absolutely. Anger, denial, blame.
Like the grieving process.
The grieving process. And we'll take young people and families and professionals through that grieving stages, because it's important for everyone to understand where they may be. Dad may be at denial. Mom may say, okay, we've got this issue, what are we going to do with? The child may just say, let's just blame everybody, or in anger. So you've got to get through that, and you've got to talk that through, and make sure, give it time.
And you talk about talking about it. It would seem to me it would be so important to be interacting with the school.
The school is part of the team to ensure that the individual will be successful. My experiences with the system, was it always easy? No. But I'll tell you, the more I worked with them, not against them, it worked. And my one son was very severe in his learning disabilities, and it was compounded by medical problems, and we worked together. And even though I'm known as an advocate, I have the respect because we worked together. Yeah. And it was because of this organization. That's why I got involved.
You talk about social problems. What do you mean by, how does learning disabilities cause social problems?
It's those young people, or the, some of us who act inappropriate socially, or in someone's face when they're talking. Okay.
No concept of personal space.
No concept of personal space. Say the most inappropriate things at the, all of a sudden in the middle of something they come out with something, go, where did that come from? Sometimes they struggle with right and wrong. They understand it, but they just say, well, no one's using that, so why can't I?
Right.
You know, and so you got to talk to them and make sure they understand. The gestures, the body language, they don't pick up that.
So you're talking about nonverbal cues?
Nonverbal cues they won't pick up.
And let's remember, the majority of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah. And if you don't know what's the difference between happy, sad, or angry, and then you take it to the extreme. And one of our most successful programs is our social skills program, where we put students from 5 to 8, 9 to 10, 12 to 15 in small groups of 8 with 2 leaders and role play social situations, put them in ways and get them to learn how to talk about it. They don't know how to do eye contact.
Yes.
You know, all the things you need to do socially. Now, there are some people who do that and they're not learning disabled. You know, so you always have to remember that. But for the people who are learning disabled, they need to learn socially. But remember that not everyone with a learning disabilities will have a social disability.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something. Quite often you see kids who are ADHD or have some form of autism. They don't know how to keep their eyes up.
No.
Or look someone right in the eye.
It took my son until he was 19 to actually give eye contact with other people.
Wow.
You know, because it's that trust, it's taking that risk, it's making sure that there's not going to be put downs.
Yes.
A lot of our young people could be bullies or could be victims of bullies because they don't know how to act socially.
Now, we haven't talked about attention deficit disorder. What is that?
Well, attention deficit disorder is a medical condition that affects attention, and it really is a biochemical condition. And what ends up happening is, you know, they think after they do it. They do it first, and they think afterwards.
Really poor impulse control.
Really, you know, and you have to understand that. So once you know that, and their thoughts processing are going really, really fast.
Yes.
And then trying to go through, it's like, you know, it comes through your brain and then it has to go down, then it has to go down on paper. So you have to break things up for them. They can be very active or they can be passive.
So if it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder,
they can be very, very.
Those are the people that can't sit still.
So then you figure out ways of how can they learn by doing it their way. So if they don't have a table and chair, they can sit on a couch. They could lie on the floor. If they're going to learn, then that works. So you have to have those learning environments for young people and figure out. But there are times where you're going to have to sit still. So what will take you? What do you need to do? You know, some of them will hold certain things.
Okay.
Okay. Some of them will say, okay, I'll do it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I have to get up, and they'll get permission to be able to get up and walk around. So you got to give them boundaries. This is appropriate for a while. After this, you can do this. You know, so it's one of the ones that I think for some people it's very frustrating because some people with attention deficit don't necessarily have a learning disability.
But they can have both.
They can have both. And if they have both, remember these are very average or above intelligent young people.
That's a very good point. Often very intelligent kids.
Absolutely. But their disability takes it down a peg sometimes, or you have it up. They maybe have valleys and peaks throughout their life. But my one son is attention deficit. So what does he do? He's a car salesman. Best job for him. You know, because you got to give.
He's great at that.
He could sell anything. You know, and that's what you got to do. You got to build that strength. So you've got someone with a lot of activeness. Figure out a way that you can build on that strength. Don't focus on the weakness. Focus
How can you utilize
the strength?
That makes so much sense. Now, we don't have a lot of time left. If somebody's watching and they say, well, I think maybe you're talking about my child, or as an adult they're watching, what should they do? What would you recommend that they do?
I would tell them to pick up the phone and call us. And I'm sure the number is 905-884-933.
And we've got your website.
And you've got our website. Definitely go onto our website. You know, feel free to call us. There will be someone at the other end between 9 and 4.
That's wonderful. And I have to tell you, Lynn, you're very welcoming and very approachable. And I think for people who maybe have some trust issues and need to feel okay about coming to see you, that would be so helpful.
We have a great staff, great volunteers. A lot of them themselves have a learning disability or are parents of.
They understand.
They understand.
Now, I know you're going to be staying on.
I am.
We're going to be right back after this break.